The crystal chandeliers cast warm light across the marble floors of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel as Victoria Sterling observed the elegant charity gala from her position near the ornate staircase. At 42, Victoria had built Sterling Enterprises into a multi-billion-dollar empire. But tonight she wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or market expansions. She was conducting an experiment that would reveal the true character of four very different people. In her black Hermes clutch were four identical black American Express Centurion cards, each loaded with $50,000 and a simple instruction: use this as you see fit. No questions asked. Victoria had spent months carefully selecting her test subjects, people from different walks of life who had no idea they were being evaluated. The first card would go to Miranda Ashford, a socialite in her 30s whose diamond-encrusted gown probably cost more than most people's cars. Miranda moved through the gala with practiced elegance, air-kissing acquaintances and posing for society photographers. The second card was intended for Dr. James Patterson, a respected cardiac surgeon who had saved countless lives, but whose gambling addiction had recently surfaced in whispered conversations among the medical community. The third would be given to Rebecca Chen, a struggling art teacher who worked 3 jobs to support her elderly mother's medical expenses and had never owned anything more luxurious than a department store dress. And the fourth card was meant for Miguel Santos, the night janitor who would arrive after the gala ended to clean up the remnants of an evening that cost more than his annual salary. Victoria had been watching Miguel for months, noting his quiet dignity and the way he treated every person with equal respect, regardless of their social status. Victoria approached Miranda first, finding her holding court near the champagne fountain. "Miranda, darling," Victoria said smoothly, "I have an interesting proposition for you." Miranda's eyes lit up with curiosity as Victoria discreetly handed her the black card. "This is yours to use however you wish. Consider it a social experiment in human nature." "How deliciously mysterious," Miranda purred, examining the card with obvious delight. "And there are no restrictions?" "None whatsoever," Victoria confirmed. "I'm simply curious to see what people do when given unexpected freedom." Miranda's mind was already racing with possibilities. The new Birkin bag she had been coveting, perhaps a weekend in Monaco, or maybe that stunning necklace she had seen at Cartier. The second encounter took place in the hotel's private bar, where Dr. Patterson was nursing what appeared to be his 4th scotch of the evening. "Dr. Patterson," Victoria said, sliding into the leather chair across from him, "I have something that might interest you." She placed the black card on the mahogany table between them. $50,000, no strings attached. Use it for whatever calls to you. James stared at the card, his hands trembling slightly. $50,000 could cover his current gambling debts and give him a fresh start, or it could fund one spectacular night at the high-stakes tables that might solve all his problems forever. "This is real?" he asked, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "Completely real," Victoria assured him. "What you do with it is entirely your choice." The third conversation took place in the hotel's service corridor, where Victoria had arranged to meet Rebecca during her break from her weekend catering job. "Ms. Chen, I apologize for the unusual meeting location," Victoria said, noting how Rebecca's tired eyes reflected months of sleepless nights caring for her mother. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm not sure why you wanted to see me," Rebecca replied nervously, smoothing her simple black server's uniform. Victoria handed her the third card with gentle directness. "This represents an opportunity, Rebecca. $50,000 to use as you see fit. I believe everyone deserves a chance to breathe freely, even if just for a moment." Rebecca stared at the card as if it might disappear. "I don't understand. Why me?" "Because you represent something beautiful in this world," Victoria said simply. "Selfless dedication to family and others. This is a gift with no expectations." The final card would wait until after midnight, when Miguel arrived for his shift. Victoria remained at the hotel, watching from the security office as the evening unfolded and her test subjects made their choices. Miranda's purchases began appearing on the card activity within hours: a $5,000 handbag, a $3,000 spa package, designer shoes, and jewelry. Each purchase was for herself, each one feeding a lifestyle already overflowing with luxury. Dr. Patterson's card showed a single transaction, $50,000 at the Belmont Casino, all lost within 2 hours on a single hand of high-stakes poker. Security footage showed him walking away from the table with the same haunted expression he had worn when Victoria gave him the card. Rebecca's card remained unused for 3 days. When activity finally appeared, it told a different story entirely. $30,000 to St. Mary's Hospital for her mother's surgical procedure, $10,000 to the food bank where she volunteered on weekends, $5,000 to her own student loan debt, and the remaining $5,000 divided among her 3 siblings to help with their children's school expenses. At 12:30 a.m., Victoria approached Miguel in the hotel's grand ballroom, where he was carefully stacking chairs and collecting forgotten items with the same attention to detail he brought to every task. "Miguel, I'm Victoria Sterling," she said, introducing herself properly for the first time, despite having observed him for months. Miguel looked up in surprise, recognizing her but clearly puzzled by the late-night introduction. "Mrs. Sterling, is there something wrong? Should I not be here?" "You should absolutely be here," Victoria assured him, extending the 4th black card. "Miguel, this card has $50,000 on it. It's yours to use for whatever you need or want." Miguel stared at the card without taking it, his weathered hands still holding the cloth he had been using to clean. "Mrs. Sterling, I think there's been a mistake. I'm just the janitor." "There's no mistake," Victoria said gently. "And you're not just anything, Miguel. You're one of the most valuable people in this building." Miguel accepted the card with trembling hands, his eyes filling with tears. "Senora, I don't know what to say. My daughter Rosa, she's so smart, but we can't afford to send her to college. And my wife Maria, she needs surgery, but we don't have insurance that covers it." "Then perhaps this can help with those things," Victoria said softly. What Miguel did next would become legendary in Victoria's memory. Over the following week, Victoria tracked Miguel's card usage with growing amazement. $20,000 went to his daughter's college fund. $15,000 covered his wife's surgery. $5,000 went to his elderly neighbor whose medications were too expensive for her Social Security to cover. $3,000 was donated to the local immigrant services center where his family had received help when they first arrived in America. The remaining $7,000 was split between his daughter's school music program, which was facing budget cuts, and a scholarship fund he established for children of hotel service workers. Miguel spent nothing on himself except for a single purchase, a $40 bouquet of flowers for his wife on the day of her surgery. 1 month later, Victoria called all 4 participants to a meeting in her private office. The reactions to her summons varied dramatically. Miranda arrived expecting to be thanked for her participation, already planning to ask for a second card. Dr. Patterson came reluctantly, shame written across his features. Rebecca appeared nervous and grateful, clutching a handwritten thank you letter. Miguel came still wearing his work uniform, having finished his morning shift at the hospital where he had taken a second job to help pay for his wife's recovery. "I asked you all here because I want to share what I learned from our experiment," Victoria began, looking at each person in turn. "Miranda, you spent every penny on yourself within 24 hours, adding luxury to a life already overflowing with privilege. Dr. Patterson, you risked everything on a single gamble that could have destroyed not just the gift, but your future as well." Both participants shifted uncomfortably as Victoria continued. "Rebecca, you used the money to solve problems for everyone in your family except yourself, ensuring that others could breathe easier while you continued to struggle. And Miguel..." Victoria's voice caught slightly as she looked at the man who had redefined her understanding of wealth. "Miguel, you created a ripple effect of generosity that touched more lives than I could have imagined. You invested in your family's future, helped your community, and gave opportunities to others that will multiply for generations." Victoria stood and walked to her desk, pulling out a folder. "The experiment revealed something I suspected but needed to confirm, that true character isn't determined by what you have, but by what you do when you have the power to choose." She turned back to the group. Miranda, you're hereby removed from the board of my foundation. Someone who thinks only of themselves, when given the opportunity to think of others, isn't suited to guide charitable decisions. Miranda's face flushed with anger and embarrassment as Victoria continued. Dr. Patterson, I'm funding a spot for you at the best rehabilitation facility in the country. Addiction is a disease, not a moral failing, and you deserve the chance to heal. James began to cry, overwhelmed by both shame and gratitude. Rebecca, you're being offered the position of Director of Educational Outreach for Sterling Enterprises, with a salary that will allow you to care for your mother while pursuing your master's degree in art therapy, which we'll also fund. Rebecca gasped, unable to speak through her tears of joy. And Miguel, Victoria said, her voice warm with respect. You're being offered the position of Vice President of Community Relations at Sterling Enterprises, where your understanding of what truly matters will guide our philanthropic efforts. Your salary will ensure that your family never has to choose between necessity and dreams again. Miguel stared at her in disbelief. Senora, I don't have the education for such a position. You have something more valuable than education, Miguel. You have wisdom, compassion, and the rare ability to see beyond yourself to the needs of others. Those qualifications matter more than any degree. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the same hotel ballroom where her experiment had begun, but now it hosted the Sterling Foundation's inaugural gala for community leaders. Miguel stood beside her in a tailored suit, his wife Maria radiant in her recovery, and their daughter Rosa beaming as she prepared to start her freshman year at Columbia University. Rebecca had organized an art therapy program that was already helping dozens of children process trauma through creativity. Dr. Patterson had completed rehabilitation and was volunteering at a clinic for uninsured patients. Using his medical skills to give back to a community that had supported his recovery, Miranda was notably absent, having moved to Europe after her social standing suffered when word of her selfishness spread through their circle. You know, Victoria said to Miguel as they watched Rosa give a speech about the scholarship program he had inspired, I thought I was testing you that night, but you were actually testing me? How so, Senora Victoria? Miguel asked, still amazed by how dramatically his life had changed. You showed me that real wealth isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you give away. True power isn't in having everything you want, but in using what you have to help others achieve their dreams. Miguel smiled, watching his daughter command the room with the same quiet dignity he had always possessed. My abuela used to say that God gives us hands not just to take for ourselves, but to lift others up. I think maybe she was right. Victoria nodded, understanding that the most valuable lesson from her $50,000 experiment couldn't be measured in dollars at all. It was the reminder that character reveals itself not in what we say we believe, but in what we choose to do when no one is watching and everything is possible. Sometimes the richest people are the ones who give the most away, and the most powerful people are those who use their strength to empower others. Miguel had taught her that true wealth is created not by accumulating resources, but by multiplying hope. If this story inspired you to think about how you would use unexpected resources and reminded you that character is revealed through our choices, please give it a like and share it with someone who understands that true wealth comes from generosity. Subscribe for more stories about the power of giving and authentic character, and let us know in the comments about a time when someone's selfless actions inspired you to be more generous. Sometimes the most important tests are the ones that reveal who we really are when everything is possible.